Everyone's fighting an internal war, yet only the quiet ones win it in silence. You're doing it right now, talking too much, saying things that don't need to be said. Every unnecessary word bleeds away your power. You've been there, watching someone dominate a meeting while you sit jaw clenched, thinking you need to speak up. You're wrong. The loudest voices rarely command respect. They perform, begging for validation, until they become background noise. Meanwhile, the quiet ones calculate. Then, when they finally speak, everyone leans in. This isn't some mind trick, but raw psychology. Power doesn't come from dominating conversations, but from controlling them. From childhood, we're programmed with lies that speaking up equals strength and constant communication shows confidence. The uncomfortable truth: most people talk to be liked, desperately seeking acknowledgement while revealing their insecurities with every needless word. Who holds more power in any room? The one eagerly explaining themselves, or the one calmly waiting for explanations? The one selling or the one being sold to? When you talk too much, you hand others a map to your vulnerabilities. You give away information while gaining nothing. And in this world, predictability is death. Your words are currency. Every time you speak, you're spending. Ask if you're getting a return on that investment or just throwing wealth away. Silence builds mystery. Mystery creates intrigue. Intrigue demands attention, and attention yields influence. In the vacuum created by your silence, people project their own thoughts and desires. They wonder what you know that they don't. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote, "Be silent for the most part, or say only what is necessary, and in few words." The Stoics knew unnecessary speech was weakness, an inability to control one's own mind and mouth. Their disciplined silence wasn't just philosophy, but strategy. Remember that meeting where you kept talking, trying to convince them, and left feeling drained? Meanwhile, your quiet colleague said 3 sentences and walked out with exactly what she wanted. Not coincidence. Power. Alexander the Great listened far more than he spoke, gathering intelligence before issuing commands. His enemies revealed their plans through eagerness to speak, their words becoming weapons used against them. History remembers the quiet strategists long after the boisterous fools are forgotten. Those who mastered silence mastered power by making their words count through scarcity, a fundamental law of both economics and influence. No is the first word of power, the first act of asserting control. You've been there, saying yes to things you hate, explaining why you can't do something instead of simply refusing. Stop justifying and start deciding. Most people are afraid to use that simple word, dancing around refusals with explanations until their stance becomes meaningless. When you learn to say no without explanation, you declare yourself unbound by others' expectations. Remember, every time you explain your no, you weaken it. Every justification turns a statement into a negotiation. The person who can comfortably sit in silence after delivering a refusal wields tremendous power. The power of refusal shapes history. When Sparta received Philip II's threat, "If I invade Laconia, I will raze Sparta to the ground," they replied with a single word: "if." The would-be conqueror never invaded. The Spartans understood what most don't. Brevity terrifies those accustomed to emotional outbursts and justifications. Your capacity to deny others directly determines your freedom and influence. Every yes binds you to someone else's agenda, but each measured, unapologetic no frees you to pursue what truly matters. When someone tries to bait you into an argument, don't take the hook. Nod, watch their eyes, and say nothing. Their frustration becomes your victory, following the formula: talk less equals observe more equals win more. When you're talking, you're revealing. When you're listening, you're learning. Sun Tzu understood this, writing, "Know the enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles, you will never be in peril." The quiet observer sees everything. The tensing around someone's eyes when they lie. The shift in posture when a topic makes them uncomfortable tells invisible to the person busy formulating their next comment. In your next conversation, Count to 3 before responding to anything important. Watch how uncomfortable they become in your silence, how they start second-guessing what they just said. Speak only when asked or absolutely necessary, making your words rare and therefore valuable. In economics, scarcity drives value. Apply this to your communication. The person who speaks constantly creates inflation in their own verbal currency until their words become worthless. Ancient kings spoke rarely but were heard completely, their proclamations becoming events, their words recorded and studied, their silence building mystique that common men could never achieve. You've watched it happen. The person who dominates every meeting gets ignored, while the one who speaks once a quarter stops the room. When you talk less, they listen more. Napoleon remarked, "The best way to keep one's word is not to give it." The same principle applies to speech. The less you say, the less you have to defend later. Your restraint becomes your reputation, an unspoken understanding that when you do speak, it matters. The colleague who speaks in every meeting is ignored, but the one who speaks once a month commands the room. The friend who shares every thought is taken for granted, but the one who rarely offers advice is sought after. Oversharing is self-sabotage, the fastest way to destroy your leverage. In negotiations, the first person to break silence typically loses, making concessions just to ease discomfort. In leadership, the commander who shares every concern creates chaos, while the one who processes privately and speaks with measured certainty creates confidence. Julius Caesar presented facts without emotion, accomplishments without boasting, strategies without justification, creating an aura of inevitable success. His restraint became his greatest weapon in the psychological battlefield where perception determines reality. You felt that morning after regret of saying too much, the pit in your stomach when you realize you revealed your salary first or confessed feelings that should have stayed hidden. That regret is your instinct telling you that you've surrendered power. In business, the company that reveals its entire strategy loses its competitive edge. In relationships, the partner who reveals every insecurity shifts the power dynamic against themselves. The compulsion to overshare stems from a misunderstanding that transparency equals authenticity and vulnerability equals connection. The truth is more nuanced. Strategic revelation builds trust, but indiscriminate exposure destroys respect. Next time you're accused of something, don't rush to defend yourself. Ask a single question instead. What makes you think that? Then watch as they talk themselves into a corner while you gather ammunition. Pascal observed that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone, revealing our compulsion to fill silence because we're uncomfortable with ourselves. When you embrace silence, something transformative happens. Your awareness sharpens, allowing you to notice the subtle signals, the unspoken dynamics, the truth beneath the chatter. While others are distracted by their own voices, you're building a mental map of reality that gives you an almost unfair advantage. When someone insults you, don't defend or counterattack. Smile slightly, maintain eye contact, and let the silence stretch until they feel compelled to explain themselves. You've won without a word. Lao Tzu observed, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Wisdom proven repeatedly throughout history as the quiet ones rise while the loud ones plateau. In any organization, sustained power gravitates toward those who observe more than they perform, listen more than they speak, act decisively rather than talking endlessly about acting. History's most powerful leaders were known not for their speeches, but for their decisive actions and strategic silence. Tomorrow, in your most important conversation, hold back 90% of what you plan to say, giving them just 10%. Watch how they lean in, how they work harder to earn the rest from you. Charles de Gaulle said, "Silence is the ultimate weapon of power." When you maintain silence, people begin to talk more. They elaborate, they reveal, They work harder to engage you. In their desperation to fill the void, they'll often talk themselves into your position. Make concessions without you asking. Expose vulnerabilities you can later address. Your silence triggers their primal need to be heard, to be validated, to know where they stand. Next time someone doubts you, don't speak, don't defend. Just build and return louder with results that make your point without a single word. When someone unleashes an emotional tirade, your measured silence becomes devastating, highlighting their loss of control against your disciplined restraint. Napoleon advised, never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Your silence allows others to overextend, to contradict themselves, to reveal their true intentions. While they exhaust themselves with justifications, you conserve your energy. While they expose their position, you conceal yours. While they become predictable, you remain a mystery. Cato the Elder observed, I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. Create this discipline, speaking only when your words improve upon silence, and you'll develop an aura of authority no volume of speech can match. Your rare interventions carry weight precisely because they emerge from depth rather than impulse. This doesn't mean never defending yourself, but choosing when and how with strategic precision. The person who responds to every accusation appears defensive, while the one who addresses only what matters appears confident. Your emotions are yours alone, not public property. Scipio Africanus demonstrated this with his unreadable demeanor. Even in crisis, his expression revealed nothing to enemies or allies. By concealing his responses, he prevented opponents from gauging their effectiveness or adjusting strategies. Your reactions are intelligence others use against you. Immediate anger confirms they've found a weakness. Visible anxiety reveals what you fear losing. Obvious excitement exposes what you desperately want. Give them nothing. Let them wonder and mistake your silence for whatever serves your purpose. At the next dinner, where everyone's fighting to be heard, try this. Ask 3 questions in a row. Good ones, deep ones. Then, just listen. You'll leave knowing more about everyone than they learned about each other. Epictetus understood this, saying, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. When everyone is performing, the quiet observer becomes the most powerful person in the room. The compulsion to speak often comes from insecurity, from the need to prove oneself, from the fear of being overlooked. True power comes from knowing your worth doesn't depend on constant vocal validation. In a world of noise, silence stands out. In a culture of oversharing, restraint creates intrigue. In an environment where everyone seeks to be heard, the one who listens gains true influence. Those desperate to demonstrate power reveal their weakness, while those comfortable with silence naturally attract the power others chase. Your silence creates the space that others fill with their assumptions, their desires, their projections. Why argue for your value when others will convince themselves of it if only you give them the silence to do so? The less you need from others, the more they're willing to give you. They'll hate you at first, your silence making them uncomfortable, your restraint feeling like judgment, until they become curious. Your mystery intrigues them, your measured words carry weight, your rare opinions become treasured. Finally, they'll respect you because you never gave yourself away cheaply, never diluted your presence with needless noise, made them work for your attention rather than begging for theirs. The choice is yours. Continue bleeding power with every word, or close your mouth, open your eyes, and watch as the world rearranges itself around your silence. The most profound power you've had all along, but rarely used until now. Watch closely those who dominate without dominating the conversation. They speak only at inflection points, choosing words that shift entire dynamics with surgical precision. The powerful don't fight for airtime, they own it through scarcity. You've witnessed it, the meeting where 20 people rambled for hours until one voice cut through, saying what everyone thought but couldn't articulate. That person left with everyone's respect, while the chatterers left with nothing. Queen Elizabeth I mastered this, often responding to urgent matters with, "I shall think on it," creating unbearable anticipation that bent ministers to her will before she'd even decided. Her silence wasn't indecision, but power, the space where others projected their fears and hopes. Every unnecessary explanation is an apology for your existence. Think about your last 10 conversations. How many words did you waste justifying decisions that needed no defense? How many times did you keep talking long after making your point? Abraham Lincoln wrote, "Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt." When you explain yourself excessively, you transform authority into insecurity. The parent who explains rules at length to children creates negotiation where there should be clarity. The leader who justifies every decision trains their team to question rather than execute. Your position needs no defense when your silence makes it unassailable. The next time someone makes a demand, don't immediately respond. Let 3 full seconds pass. Watch their confidence falter in that void. Then, ask one question that shifts the burden. Why is this important to you? The balance of power reverses instantly. While they scramble to justify, you're evaluating whether their request deserves your energy. Cleopatra employed this strategy against Rome itself. Her calculated delays and sparse communication, keeping both Caesar and Mark Antony perpetually off balance, transforming would-be conquerors into supplicants. Remember, the urgent request that can't withstand 5 seconds of silence wasn't urgent at all. It was a test of your boundaries that you must not fail. Your silence casts a shadow that stretches across rooms, boardrooms, and battlefields. In that darkness, others fumble, revealing everything, while you reveal nothing. You felt it building with each word unsaid, the raw, unfamiliar power that comes from standing apart from the desperate chorus of voices. While the world drowns in noise, you rise above it, watching as they exhaust themselves in explanation, while you conserve your force for moments that matter. Genghis Khan, who conquered half the known world, spoke so rarely his words were recorded like divine proclamations. The habit of breaking silence is humanity's greatest vulnerability. The discipline to maintain it, your deadliest weapon. As you walk away from this moment, remember, in a world that can't stop talking, the one who masters silence doesn't just participate in the game, they change its fundamental rules. They don't just influence the room, they own it. Invisible strings of power extending from their silence to everyone desperate to fill it.